Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here today. You could be anywhere else, but you chose to show up. And I believe that's not by accident. I believe there's something here today that was meant just for you. You know, life has a way of teaching us things, sometimes the easy way, but more often the hard way. And here's the truth: we can either discipline ourselves or life will do it for us. It's not always easy. Waking up early, saying no to distractions, staying consistent when it's uncomfortable, that takes strength. But let me tell you, there's greatness in you, there's potential in you. And when you make that decision to live with discipline, not perfection, but progress, you're planting seeds for a future that's full of favor, growth, and blessing. So today I want to stir something up in you. I want to challenge you not to be harder on yourself, but to be more committed to the version of you that you were created to be. Because if you don't take control of your life, life will take control of you. But I believe you're not here just to survive. You're here to rise, to overcome, and to live a life that inspires others to do the same. Discipline is choosing long-term gain over short-term comfort. That statement might seem simple, but it carries a weight that can determine the course of a person's life. Every day we're presented with two roads. One road is smooth, tempting, and easy. It's lined with distractions, indulgence, and instant gratification. The other road is steep, narrow, and challenging. It demands effort, patience, and sacrifice. But it's that second road, the one fewer people want to walk, that leads to lasting fulfillment. Most of us want success. We want good health, strong relationships, financial stability, peace of mind. But what we sometimes fail to realize is that all of these things come with a price. And that price is usually paid in daily decisions, small choices made in private, often without applause or recognition. Waking up early to work on your goals, saying no to that second helping of food, putting your phone down to have a real conversation, saving instead of spending, practicing instead of procrastinating. These aren't huge, dramatic moments. They're quiet decisions made again and again. And the truth is, comfort is sneaky. It whispers to us, just take it easy today. You've done enough. One day off won't hurt. It gives us a false sense of security. But the more we give in to comfort, the more we train our minds to avoid what's hard. And the more we avoid what's hard, the weaker we become, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Before long, we're no longer in control. Life starts calling the shots. We get forced into situations we could have prevented. Our bodies start breaking down. Our relationships suffer. Opportunities pass us by. And it all traces back to a lack of discipline. Discipline is about vision. It's about seeing beyond the moment. When you choose discipline, you're not just saying no to something, you're saying yes to something greater. You're saying yes to your future, yes to your calling, yes to the version of you that you haven't met yet. And yes, that means you'll have to say no to some things you want right now. No to late night scrolling. No to gossip. No to excuses. No to the temptation to quit when it gets tough. But every time you say no to what's easy, you're saying yes to what's meaningful. People often think of discipline as restrictive. They think it's about depriving yourself, living a dull life with no joy. But that's a misunderstanding. Discipline is actually the path to true freedom. When you're disciplined, you're not a slave to your emotions. You're not at the mercy of cravings, laziness, or mood swings. You're in charge. You have direction. You don't need to be pushed. You pull yourself forward. And that kind of power builds confidence. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you reinforce your belief in yourself. You begin to trust your own word. You begin to walk with integrity because your actions line up with your intentions. It's not about being perfect. It's about being committed. You're going to fall short sometimes. You'll mess up. You'll choose comfort when you know you should have chosen growth. But discipline means getting back up. It means course correcting. It means remembering that your life is too valuable to be wasted on temporary relief. Because let's be honest, those quick fixes don't satisfy. The scroll, the snack, the snooze button, they might feel good for a moment, but they leave you feeling empty afterward. Real satisfaction comes from doing what you said you'd do, from living in alignment with your purpose. Look at anyone who has achieved something meaningful in life, whether it's in business, sports, art, or faith, and you'll see a trail of disciplined choices behind them. You'll see the early mornings, the late nights, the sacrifices, the quiet hours of preparation when nobody else was watching. What separates high achievers isn't just talent. It's their willingness to do what others won't, to delay pleasure, to keep showing up, to endure discomfort for a greater reward. And here's the thing, discipline isn't something you either have or don't have. It's something you build like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. At first it feels unnatural. Your mind resists, your body complains. But if you stay with it, if you lean into the discomfort instead of running from it, something shifts. What once felt hard starts to feel normal. What once drained you starts to energize you. You become someone who does hard things not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Your habits today shape your tomorrow. It's a simple truth, but one that carries immense power. We often look at our dreams, goals, and the life we want to live as things that will happen someday when we have more time, more resources, more motivation. But the reality is that the future doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins right now in the patterns we live out every single day. Every decision you make, no matter how small it seems, is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. We like to believe that major success comes from big, dramatic actions, a sudden breakthrough, a massive opportunity, a stroke of luck. But when you look closer, you'll find that most extraordinary lives are built on a foundation of ordinary routines. Small things, done consistently, create big results over time. If you want to be healthy, it's not about crash diets or extreme workouts. It's about showing up every day and making choices that support your health. If you want to be financially stable, it's not about winning the lottery. It's about managing your money wisely, saving, investing, and living below your means one day at a time. The challenge is that habits don't always feel important in the moment. Skipping one workout doesn't seem like a big deal. Spending a little extra money today doesn't seem harmful. Procrastinating on your goals for just one day feels harmless. But the danger is in the repetition. What you do once might not make a difference, but what you do daily shapes your destiny. Success and failure both come from the accumulation of repeated actions, one building you up, the other slowly pulling you down. The power of habit lies in its ability to operate beneath the surface. Once a habit is formed, it becomes automatic. You don't think about brushing your teeth or tying your shoes, you just do it. The same principle applies to everything else. If you train yourself to wake up early, read daily, practice gratitude, eat clean, focus deeply, or exercise consistently, those actions become part of who you are. They no longer require willpower, they become your identity. And once your identity changes, your future follows. It's important to understand that habits don't form overnight. They take time, repetition, and commitment. You might not see the results right away, and that can be discouraging. But just because you don't see the fruit yet doesn't mean the seed isn't growing. Think of it like planting a tree. You water it, care for it, and protect it from the elements long before it ever bears fruit. The same goes for the habits that will shape your life. They require patience and trust that your consistent actions will compound over time and deliver the results you're working toward. There's also the truth that bad habits are often easier to form than good ones. Why? Because bad habits usually offer instant gratification. Eating junk food is easier than cooking a healthy meal. Scrolling on your phone is easier than sitting in silence to think or read. Skipping the gym is easier than sweating through a workout. But the easy road now often leads to the hard road later. Poor habits create stress, disappointment, low self-esteem, and missed opportunities. They rob you of your potential before you even realize it. That's why it's so important to pay attention to what you're repeating. Not just what you want, but what you're doing, because your actions are the real architects of your future. What helps is to make your habits serve your vision. Start small. Pick one area of your life and commit to improving it with a single habit. Don't wait until you feel motivated. Build systems that make good behavior automatic. Set up your environment for success. Surround yourself with people who reinforce your values. Remove distractions, keep your goals visible, and most importantly, be consistent even when it's boring. The truth is, success is often boring. It's not always exciting or glamorous. It's about showing up, doing the work, and trusting the process even when you don't feel like it. You don't need to overhaul your life in one day. You just need to get better by 1% each day. That 1% adds up. Over weeks, months, and years, it transforms you. You start to notice a shift in your mindset, in your energy, in your results. You start to become the kind of person who naturally does the things others struggle with. Not because you're better, but because you've trained yourself through your habits. You become intentional. You've taken control of your time, your focus, and your choices. Pain of discipline is lighter than the pain of regret. That statement carries a truth that echoes through every area of life and health, in relationships, in career, in dreams unfulfilled. The choice is never between pain or no pain. The real choice is which kind of pain you're willing to carry. Discipline demands something from you up front. It asks for your effort, your patience, your energy, your focus. It's the kind of pain that comes with early mornings, with saying no when everyone else is saying yes, with pushing yourself when your mind wants to quit. But it's a clean kind of pain. It strengthens you. It gives you direction. It builds you from the inside out. Regret, on the other hand, shows up when we choose the easier path over and over again. It's the pain that comes from knowing you could have done better, but didn't. It creeps in slowly at first, quietly like a whisper, what if I had tried? Why didn't I start sooner? I should have pushed through. Regret is a heavy burden because there's no going back to fix the moment you didn't act. While discipline gives you control, regret leaves you powerless. You can't reverse time. You can't relive the opportunity that passed you by. We often think we're choosing comfort when we avoid discipline, but we're really choosing discomfort later, discomfort that lasts longer, cuts deeper, and lingers in the background of our lives. It's the missed promotions because we didn't prepare. It's the broken relationships because we didn't listen or grow. It's the health issues that come from neglecting ourselves year after year. Discipline may be uncomfortable now, but it's temporary. Regret lingers. It keeps replaying in your mind. It keeps reminding you of who you could have been if only you had decided differently. Think about the people you admire, the ones who live with purpose, who radiate confidence, who seem to carry a quiet strength. They didn't get there by accident. They paid the price of discipline. They did what needed to be done even when it was hard, even when it wasn't convenient. They showed up. They practiced. They studied. They worked. And now they live with a sense of peace, not because life is easy, but because they know they've honored their potential. Discipline doesn't mean you never feel like quitting. It doesn't mean you always feel motivated or energized. It simply means you do it anyway. You push through the resistance. You keep going when the excitement wears off. You keep your commitments to yourself, and that alone builds a level of self-respect that few people experience. You start to trust yourself more. You start to see yourself as capable. And that quiet confidence changes how you move through the world. Regret, in contrast, can become a trap. It convinces you that it's too late, that you missed your window, that you can't start now because you didn't start then. But the truth is, discipline is always available. It's not about what you didn't do in the past. It's about what you're willing to do right now. You don't have to keep carrying the pain of regret. You can trade it for the pain of discipline. One leads to healing, progress, and freedom. The other keeps you stuck in the past. There's also a hidden reward in discipline that most people don't talk about, and that's the joy of knowing you've lived with intention. There's a deep satisfaction that comes from pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone, from proving to yourself that you're stronger than your excuses, from finishing something you once doubted you could do. It might not look glamorous from the outside, but on the inside it creates a sense of pride that no one can take away from you. That's the kind of fulfillment that doesn't need applause. It's the quiet reward of a life lived on purpose. It's easy to avoid hard things in the moment, to sleep and instead of get up early, to spend instead of save, to delay the conversation instead of addressing the issue. But with every easy choice, the weight of regret grows heavier. It becomes harder to move forward, harder to feel hopeful. And eventually you stop dreaming altogether because the pain of not acting has convinced you that the future can't be different. But it can be. Discipline is the doorway. It's the reminder that you still have a say in how your story goes. It's not about punishing yourself, it's about loving yourself enough to do what's right even when it's hard. Because the discomfort you feel now is temporary, but the pain of never trying might last a lifetime. Success doesn't respond to desire, it responds to consistency. Everyone wants to be successful in some area of life. We all have dreams, goals, aspirations, whether it's building a career, starting a business, achieving financial freedom, improving health, writing a book, or creating meaningful relationships. Desire is the spark. It's the emotional pull that gets us excited, the vision that wakes us up in the middle of the night with inspiration. But desire by itself is not enough. The world is filled with people who want more but do less. Not because they lack potential, but because they haven't mastered consistency. Consistency is where the real work happens. It's where the invisible effort stacks up behind the scenes, day after day, forming the invisible foundation for visible success. While others are chasing shortcuts or waiting for motivation, consistent people show up. They stick to the process. They understand that the results don't come from what you do occasionally, but from what you do repeatedly. You don't become fit by going to the gym once. You don't become wealthy by saving money one time. You don't build mastery by practicing when you feel like it. You get results by showing up, especially on the days when it's hard, inconvenient, or boring. There's something powerful about repetition. It builds trust not only with others, but with yourself. Every time you follow through, you reinforce your identity. You become the kind of person who honors your word, who stays the course. It doesn't matter if the progress is slow. What matters is that the progress is real. Small steps taken consistently become unstoppable momentum. That momentum builds confidence, and that confidence keeps you moving forward even when the results aren't immediate. Desire is emotional, but consistency is structural. You can want something with all your heart and still not achieve it if you don't build the habits, systems, and routines to support it. Structure creates freedom. When you consistently create time for what matters, you stop depending on motivation. You stop relying on how you feel. You start moving with purpose, driven not by mood swings, but by commitment. That's when your work begins to compound. That's when the gap between wanting and having starts to close. Many people give up not because their dream was impossible, but because they expected fast results from minimal effort. They put in a few good days and get discouraged when the world doesn't change. But consistency requires patience. It asks you to trust the process when the scoreboard doesn't reflect your effort yet. You keep showing up, planting seeds, tending the soil, believing that the harvest will come in due time. You understand that overnight success is a myth. Most overnight successes were built on years of quiet, consistent work that nobody saw. Consistency also builds resilience. When you keep doing the work, you learn how to push through resistance. You develop grit. You stop panicking when things go wrong because you've trained yourself to keep moving forward. Setbacks don't break you, they shape you. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be consistent. Even when you fail, you learn, adjust, and keep going. That's what separates the committed from the casual, not perfection, but persistence. In a noisy world where everyone is chasing the next big thing, consistency makes you stand out. It's rare. Most people start strong and fade fast. They get excited but not disciplined. They talk about goals more than they act on them. But when you're consistent, your actions speak louder than your intentions. You earn credibility, both with yourself and with others. People begin to trust you, not to trust in you, but because of your follow through. The truth is, you don't need more intensity. You need more consistency. Intensity may feel impressive, but it's the steady drip of effort over time that carves out deep change. That's why habits matter. That's why routines matter. They keep you grounded. They keep you focused. They keep you moving forward even when life gets chaotic. You may not be the fastest or the most advanced talented, and if you're consistent, you become reliable. And in the long run, reliable people go farther than those who are occasionally brilliant but frequently inconsistent. Consistency creates momentum, and momentum makes hard things easier over time. What once felt like a struggle starts to feel like second nature. What once drained you now energizes you. You develop rhythm. You gain clarity. You begin to see results not because you wanted them, but because you worked for them day in and day out. If you don't set your own standards, life will set them for you. That's a reality many people don't fully understand until it's too late. Every day, in every area of life, there are expectations being placed on you by society, by your environment, by the people around you. And if you don't take the time to define what you stand for, what you expect from yourself, what kind of life you want to lead, you'll find yourself being pulled in directions that were never meant for you. The world is full of noise, full of distractions, full of pressure. Without clear standards, it's easy to drift. It's easy to fall into habits that don't align with your values. It's easy to live according to what's popular instead of what's purposeful. Setting your own standards means living with intention. It means choosing your values, your principles, your code of conduct, not because someone told you to, but because you've decided for yourself what kind of person you want to be. Standards act like a compass. They help you navigate challenges. They help you say no to things that look good, but aren't good for you. They protect your time, your energy, your future. When you have high standards, you don't settle for just anything. You don't let life happen to you, you take responsibility for shaping it. But if you don't have those personal standards, the world will give you its own version. It will tell you how to think, how to behave, what success looks like, what happiness should feel like. And more often than not, those external standards are shallow, reactive, and focused on short-term gratification. They'll push you to compare, to conform, to chase things that don't truly satisfy. Without your own standards, you become vulnerable to manipulation by trends, by pressure, by circumstances. You start to accept what's convenient instead of what's right. You start to compromise without even realizing it. Your standards determine your direction. If you set them low, you'll drift into mediocrity. You'll make excuses. You'll tolerate things that drain your potential. You'll surround yourself with people who don't challenge you, environments that don't inspire you, and habits that don't build you. But if you raise your standards even quietly, even privately, everything begins to shift. You hold yourself to a higher level of accountability. You no longer let emotions drive your decisions. You stop chasing approval and start building character. People often associate standards with being rigid or arrogant, but true personal standards aren't about being better than others. They're about being better than who you used to be. They're a commitment to growth. They remind you that your future is too important to leave in the hands of randomness. They push you to level up in your thinking, your behavior, your relationships, your self-care, your work ethic. They become the silent foundation that holds you steady when life gets chaotic. Setting your own standards also helps you recognize when something or someone doesn't align with your purpose. You begin to spot the distractions. You begin to recognize toxic patterns. You begin to protect your peace more fiercely because now you know what you will and will not allow into your life. That clarity brings strength. It helps you walk away from things that aren't meant for you without guilt or hesitation. You're no longer driven by impulse, you're led by vision. When your standards are low, you accept things that slowly chip away at your confidence. You say yes when you mean no. You lower your voice to fit in. You make choices based on fear instead of faith. But when you raise your standards, your entire life starts to elevate. You begin to attract better opportunities, better relationships, better outcomes, not by luck, but by alignment. You send a message to yourself and the world, this is who I am and this is what I expect. It doesn't mean life becomes easy. In fact, high standards can make the path harder in the beginning. It might mean standing alone for a season. It might mean letting go of familiar routines, places, or people that no longer match where you're headed. But in the long run, those sacrifices pay off because you're not just living for comfort, you're living for purpose. And purpose requires discipline. It requires clarity. It requires the courage to hold the line even when it's unpopular or inconvenient. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. If you want lasting change, you can't just dream big. You have to raise what you're willing to demand from yourself every day. You have to define what excellence looks like in your life and then commit to living by it, even when no one is watching. Because the truth is, if you don't take the time to decide what matters to you, life will decide for you and it won't always choose in your favor. Discipline isn't punishment, it's self-respect in action. Too often people hear the word discipline and immediately associate it with restriction, suffering, or being forced into something they don't want to do. They see it as harsh, rigid, or joyless. But true discipline is not about depriving yourself, it's about honoring yourself. It's about recognizing your worth and choosing actions that align with who you truly want to become. When you discipline yourself, you're not doing it because you hate your life, you're doing it because you believe your life is worth more. Choosing discipline means you value your long-term well-being more than momentary comfort. It means you understand that your energy, time, health, and potential are too valuable to be wasted on things that don't serve you. When you respect yourself, you don't chase every distraction. You don't allow yourself to be ruled by every craving, mood swing, or impulse. You learn to pause, to think, to choose with intention. You stop reacting and start leading your own thoughts, your own habits, your own direction. It's easy to think that discipline means restriction, but the truth is, lack of discipline is what keeps people trapped. Trapped in bad habits, toxic relationships, financial stress, regret, and stagnation. When you don't discipline yourself, life begins to feel chaotic. You start feeling like you're constantly catching up, constantly fixing problems you could have prevented. Discipline is what creates structure in your life. And structure isn't there to limit you, it's there to support you. It gives you space to grow, to focus, to build something meaningful. Self-respect isn't just about how you talk to yourself or how you let others treat you. It's about how you treat your own future. When you practice discipline, you're telling your future self, I've got your back. You're doing the hard work today so that the version of you that wakes up tomorrow, next month, next year is stronger, healthier, more focused, and more at peace. That's not punishment. That's love. That's ownership. That's maturity. The world tells you to treat yourself, to go easy, to relax, to indulge, to quit if it gets hard. And sure, rest and joy have their place, but real peace doesn't come from avoiding effort. It comes from knowing you are living in alignment with your values. Discipline gives you that peace. It gives you freedom, not through escape, but through mastery. You're no longer a slave to old habits. You're no longer tossed around by circumstances. You start to live on your own terms. You start waking up with purpose instead of dread. You stop depending on motivation and instead rely on commitment. You build systems that carry you through when emotions fluctuate. You become someone others can count on, not because you're perfect, but because you're consistent. You're grounded. You have your own back. That kind of inner strength is magnetic. It's powerful. And it's available to anyone willing to honor their future over their feelings. When you don't practice discipline, you often end up disrespecting yourself in subtle ways. You say yes to things that drain you. You stay in places that keep you stuck. You break promises to yourself and then wonder why your confidence is low. But discipline is the act of keeping those promises. It's waking up when you said you would. It's doing the work even when nobody's watching. It's following through on your commitments even when no one would blame you for quitting. That's integrity. And integrity builds identity, the kind that can weather storms. Discipline is also an act of clarity. When you know who you are and where you're going, you start filtering your decisions differently. You stop letting temporary pleasure override permanent progress. You stop chasing validation and start chasing vision. Every time you show up for yourself, even in a small way, you're reinforcing the message that you matter, that your goals matter, and that your life deserves excellence. People who lack discipline often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and frustrated, not because they're not capable, but because their actions are out of alignment with their values. They want to feel confident, but they avoid the very process that builds confidence. They want freedom, but they resist the structure that creates it. They want results, but they shy away from the consistency that delivers them. Discipline bridges that gap. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it works. It's built in the quiet moments, in the decision to keep going, in the refusal to lower your standards just to make life easier, in the choice to push through resistance instead of running from it. Those choices may feel small in the moment, but over time they shape your destiny. They create a life you don't need to escape from, a life that reflects not just what you dreamed about, but what you were willing to commit to.